Greetings at YouTube. One refrain I hear a lot when it comes to voting is, my vote doesn't count. Well, here's an example of why your vote does count. If your vote didn't count, the GOP wouldn't have gone to such great lengths to keep Democrats from voting. First off, there's the whole voter ID law. Those are meant specifically to disenfranchise Democratic voters who make up a lot of minorities vote Democratic. And they know this, so they've done everything they can to keep them off the rolls. How have they done this? For example, if you haven't voted in 2 consecutive elections, you might get your registration just disappeared. And if you do a provisional vote, because you're there and you want to vote, but you can prove who you are, your vote may not count at all. Also, at the time when they began to enact voter ID laws, they also did things like reduce registration hours, close registration locations, eradicate Sunday voting. In some places, there might be a county where there's one place where you can register. And what happens if you don't have a car? They've gone out of their way to disenfranchise the processes of registration. There are still people railing against the organization known as Acorn, which hasn't existed for like a decade. But they're still railing against it. They're still giving the impression that that organization is undermining voting. But it doesn't exist any longer. But they're still beating that drum because it plays to the GOP base. There have been GOP candidates that have put advertisements out telling people to vote on the wrong day so that they wouldn't go to the polls and vote. And people say, well, you need an ID to go to the polls. Well, if you don't have an ID, you have to go buy an ID. You just don't get a free state ID. It costs money. I know. I used to have a non-driver's ID. And it costs money. And if you make someone spend money so they can vote, that's a poll tax. And that's unconstitutional. But they're still doing it. So the GOP has gone to some real effort to keep you, the Democrats of America, from voting. Because they know that the majority of minorities vote Democrat. And they don't want you voting. They've done things like just throw people off the voting rolls because they had names similar to someone that wasn't allowed to vote because they were a felon. Not actual felons, not someone that was even suspected of a crime, just your name was kind of like, that felon, so we're just going to throw you off the rolls. They do these kinds of things all the time because, well, the GOP candidates and the GOP hierarchy and those in power are utterly morally bankrupt. And they will do anything in their power to keep themselves in power, including utterly undermining the voting rights of every American that they even suspect isn't going to vote for them. So every time you think about the fact that, well, my vote doesn't count, think about how much effort the GOP has gone to keep you from voting. Because they sure think your vote counts. Because if they didn't, they wouldn't be trying to stop you.